highly expected.
I love my girl.
Right, so I'll just welcome
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I'm Sam. Nice to meet you. I just graduated.
Good evening, everyone.
I just graduated.
There you go. Everybody else, good evening.
Good evening.
Alright, I'd like to get a little more engagement. Welcome to this month's ClimateLink meetup. My name is Robbie Mickelson. I'm one of the organizers. And we like to showcase technologies and companies and organizations that are fighting climate change and looking to make a positive difference in the world. And tonight we are covering clean energy access in emerging markets with two of our longtime friends. Victoria actually presented at one of the very first meetups that I did when I started this group a few years ago. So it was just over 2 years ago when she presented, so we get lots of updates. And Sandra has been a friend but has not yet presented, so this is all new. So we've already done the first part, we've eaten and we've talked to each other, and now we'll do some quick announcements, then we'll get to the true purpose for us being here, and then we'll eat some more and we'll talk some more, and then we'll get kicked out. And there's a video. So, real quick, I want to thank our hosts, Ryan and Pete from PG&E. Although they're having a very tough time at the moment with the shutoffs, the people here are still doing an amazing service of offering up this space and classes for education about energy saving, adding solar. So with that, not Pete Shoemaker, but Ryan, what's your name?
Stroop.
Ryan Stroop. So he'll tell you a little bit about the Energy Center.
And covered safety and egress. So how many are first-time visitors to the center? Oh, wow, a lot of you. Okay, great. So one of the things I need to let you know is this is a publicly funded center and our services are free. And if you're interested in learning more about energy efficiency or renewables or demand response, the classes we offer, I teach many of them. I believe they're really high level. Many of them are simulcast. You can attend them through the internet. Many people that are new to this industry have sort of found the Energy Center as their adult education, if you will, how to sort of learn about energy efficiency and renewables. I'd encourage you to look at the many classes we offer. Like I said, they're publicly funded, which means they're free. So we have hundreds of classes we offer year every year. Just to show hands, who's taken an Energy Center class before? So you can ask these independent, neutral people about the experience taking their classes. I'm sure they'd give candid perspectives on that. There are other things we do here. If you have projects, we will help you. We can give you advice about how to make your buildings more energy efficient, or how to integrate renewables, or how to find PG&E incentives. And we also, the third thing we do is we loan equipment here. We have a tool lending library, and we have actually over 5,000 tools that we will loan you for free to help you understand how your building works, or how to actually site renewable systems. There's SunEyes. How many people are familiar with SunEyes? You can borrow them from us for free as part of this lending library. Show of hands, who's borrowed tools from us before? Nobody here.
I started and then I canceled because I ran out of time.
Yeah, so it's a great service. It's one of the things that we're really proud of. We actually started a lending library here 20 years ago. It's our 20th anniversary of that program, and Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric are emulating this program now and offering similar services in their service territories. So I wanted to let you know about one particular event that actually happens to be scheduled for tomorrow night here, and it's in collaboration with Young Energy Professionals. We did an event in March, which was focused on energy trivia, and it was intended to be a networking opportunity, get a lot of people that have been here before to come to the Energy Center, have something that was fun but also educational. I am hosting our second energy trivia night tomorrow night. I have 35 challenging and engaging questions prepared, so you can gather a team. There's still plenty of room to attend. We also have food and beverages here, and it's also a great networking opportunity. If you want to meet people from engineering firms or solar and renewable firms, they'll be here tomorrow night. And exits. So to get out of this space, the fastest way is actually down the hallway here. And on the left-hand side of the hallway, there's a stairwell. You go down here at the front of the building. If you choose to exit out the back of the classroom, that's your other means of egress, the way you got in here. There's an AED at the front desk. There's a gentleman who will be there tonight, Juan. He can notify medical services. Anybody CPR certified? We just like to talk about those sort of safety issues. We'll have somebody call 911 in case of a medical emergency. And if we have to exit the building in case of, say, a fire, we will meet at the corner of 4th and Howard Street. He will be here and he'll basically decide if it's safe to continue the event. In case of an earthquake, we don't exit the building, we go under the desks, wait for the building to stop shaking, and then again, people determine if it's safe to continue the event. So that's all I have. Thanks, Robbie.
That's right. If you need Wi-Fi, the code is over here. It's free. Bathrooms, there's 2 bathrooms out there, and then more downstairs. ClimateLink, a little bit about ClimateLink. So we are a network of entrepreneurs, startups, investors, foundations, government agencies, enthusiasts. And our goal is to accelerate the development and deployment of these technologies. So some of the things we do is we help connect startups with capital, with customers, with job seekers. And as of 2 weeks ago, we had our first marriage. So ClimateLink does a lot. Whatever you're looking for, we can help. So we've got a Slack channel, we post these videos to YouTube. There's a monthly newsletter where we post these events about 2 weeks before they get posted on Meetup. Next month, we're doing marine technology. So we have somebody from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, we have some startup from the Sustainable Oceans Alliance, and we've got somebody who's developed VR technology, so we'll have a bunch of VR underwater videos that you can participate in. December, it's our end of the year party. We partner with Data Science for Sustainability. We usually get a keynote speaker from the head of sustainability for Google or the chair of the California Energy Commission, we did last year. So working on that one right now. And as I said, we help with people looking for or hiring for jobs. So starting from my right and going left, who is hiring? Anybody? Derek.
Hi everyone, my name is Derek. I work for LG Chemicals. We have one position in Michigan, unfortunately, and one position in San Jose. Mostly dealing with electric vehicle battery packs as well as energy storage systems.
All right, Go ahead. Steve.
Hey. Steve Wade, I work for Sunrun on the grid services team. We are always hiring a variety of positions. Right now, if you happen to be a software product manager, grid services is hiring one of those. That's a pretty fun one. And the website usually has a few dozen around San Francisco.
Thank you.
And feel free to just come talk to me about Sunrun.
Hey guys, Swanov, I'm from Touchlight, and we are hiring data scientists, front-end engineers, and back-end engineers. So if you're interested in working on home building energy automation, then come talk to me at the end.
Great. Up front.
Ted Power is recruiting for a finance expert in commercial and industrial solar.
Good, fine. No, great. So with that, I'm done. And Sandra, it's your turn.
Thanks, Robbie. It's a pleasure to be here. Okay, so this is my company. It's called 10 Power. Can you all do that with me? Woo! 10 Power. I'll never forget, and in case you do, you can count your fingers. So what 10 Power is working on is bringing renewable energy to people across the world who do not have access to electricity. Essentially building renewable energy ecosystems in markets that today are without. And we're doing that through project development and finance, which are the key missing pieces. You may have seen this image before. This is the world at night. So you can see that there are many places where people do not have access to electricity at night. There's over 1 billion people on the planet today who have no access to a grid, and that's about 14% of the global population. Think about how electricity has contributed to every single thing that you are today. to us being in this room right here, right now, to your educational systems, to our transportation systems, to us having access to the mother brain, the internet, to be able to download and upload information, share it with other humans across the planet. We owe a lot to power. 10 Power considers electricity the key building block in places that today have no access to power. So from everything from life-supporting clean water to drink, all the way to access to global markets, education, and gender empowerment, electricity, especially renewable energy, is the fundamental piece. This is a map of energy poverty across the world. The more intensely red the country's color, the greater the percentage of the population that does not have access to electricity. Haiti is the only red dot in the Americas over here. That's where we're working. Now, when you overlay renewable energy generation potential, the interesting thing about this map is that the places with the highest energy poverty actually are clustered around the equator and have the highest solar generation potential. It's a massive business opportunity, not only to lift over 1 billion people out of poverty, but also to do so with reliable, renewable electricity that's not creating the conditions for climate change that we're suffering from right now. So the conditions in Haiti are similar to many places across the world that have unreliable or no access to electricity. There's one utility monopoly that is mostly owned by the government called EDH, and they have very unreliable power. So frequent blackouts outside of the capital Port-au-Prince, sometimes you go days or weeks at a time without electricity. So basically all businesses are using diesel generators for their power supply. And Haiti is wholly reliant on imported fossil fuels to power both the utilities, electricity generation, as well as businesses, which results in very high prices for electricity. So we're seeing amortized costs of power for these commercial and industrial customers using diesel generators, anywhere from 25 to 60 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, of course, not only are those expensive in terms of monetary costs, but they're also expensive in terms of health costs and environmental costs. Right now, Haiti is in big trouble. And I saw the writing on the wall when I was starting 10 Power 3 years ago, because Haiti was reliant, as many countries in the Caribbean were, on the Petro-Caribe Agreement, where Venezuela was providing a subsidy for oil exports to these countries. And as Venezuela's economy started backsliding, that subsidy went away. So the Haitian government took on this oil subsidy because they can't afford to raise the price of electricity for their customers. The price of energy ties into the price of every single other thing, the price of milk, the price of transportation. So the Haitian government took on this subsidy that Venezuela was previously providing, and national banks told Haiti that they had to raise the price of oil to market prices, otherwise they would cease lending to the country. So the government of Haiti has tried to raise the price of fuel 4 times, and each time the population has revolted. The majority of the population there lives below the global poverty line, $2.40 per day. And so basically right now there's political turmoil. People are protesting in the streets. And so we really have an imperative to create a solar market now, because solar can solve a lot of these problems. But the big question is, how do you scale in a market that's so unstable? I see Haiti as kind of the canary in the mine shaft, because Haiti's economy was completely reliant on fossil fuels, and not addressing this up front is basically a proxy for our entire global economy's over-reliance on fossil fuels. I mean, look at how hard the mortgage crisis rocked global economies, and how many people actually owned assets in subprime mortgage loans. Not that many of us. You know, such a small pebble can create such a large ripple effect. And everything right now is intertwined with fossil fuels. So it's really important for us to get off of fossil fuels before it's too late, because this is what happens. Now, Haiti's not just about the negative. Oftentimes, the press sensationalizes poverty and sensationalizes bad news. Right? So I think it's really important for us to focus, especially in the regeneration and sustainability movement, equally if not more so on positive news. Because if you're only looking at negative things behind you, how are you going to progress forward? So I want to share with you some positive success stories from Haiti and how beautiful Haiti really is. Pristine beaches, mountains. You know, a lot of this land has not been developed. You know, most islands in the Caribbean, you think these huge beach resorts and cruise ships, but Haiti has a lot of local businesses, local agriculture, and really just untouched, gorgeous nature. There's incredible human resources. People work really hard. Most people work 6 days a week. Haiti has 7 women for every 10 men in the workplace, and tons of human resources. People just hustle so hard to get education for themselves, for their children, to advance themselves, and a ton of solar commercial potential. So we have customers who are calling us right now who want solar on their businesses. We also are investing in the communities, so we make sure that we're training our local installers to build capacity, and we really see the power for solar to provide access to empowerment for people. 10 Power's business model is threefold. So we provide project development, which means international codes and standards and engineering training. We provide solar finance so that our customers can pay us back month over month. Because right now the situation in Haiti is that if you want solar, you have to have 100% of that CapEx up front. Who could even do that here in the US? Who could buy a house without mortgage payments? Or not even that many people buy cars without car payments. So finance is really the key to unlocking a lot of these markets, and it's what's made solar so popular here. We also invest in local ecosystems, so 100% of our installers are local, and we're working on training them up, making sure that they're really well versed in all the latest and greatest technology. Our revenue comes from two streams: project developer fees, so we have a slight markup on the equipment and the labor, and also from interest on solar loans. So we return interest to investors, a portion of that interest comes back to 10 Power, and it's a win-win-win-win-win-win all the way around. So our customers save money, we make money, our investors make money, it's good for the community, and it's good for the environment. This was our first project. It was a pilot on 2 water purification facilities outside of Port-au-Prince, up the coast on the beach. And these water purification facilities are providing clean drinking water to surrounding communities, which clean water obviously is very important to any form of life on this planet, but crucial in Haiti, where the UN brought cholera after the 2010 earthquake, and the country is still struggling to contain the cholera outbreak. So these water purification facilities were able to reduce the price of producing clean water by switching from a diesel generator over to solar. And they are now supporting over 600 micro-enterprises, majority women-led, and selling water at 1/3 of a cost of the market alternative. This is our latest project. We put solar on UNICEF Haiti's headquarters. This was a 130 kilowatt PV energy storage project. And this project was actually the largest solar installation on any UNICEF in the entire world. So, thank you. I'll show you some drone footage from that project. It was completed last year, and the UN was pretty stoked because we're working on multiple UN Sustainable Development Goals simultaneously. So with this installation, we launched a women's solar installer training program. We're working in conjunction with Haiti Tech, which is one of the leading tech institutions in Haiti. We provided a lot of safety and engineering training for our installer team. And just to give a shout out to some of the global goals, the ones that 10 Power is focused on are number 1, no poverty, number 5, gender empowerment, number 7, renewable energy access for all, and number 13, climate action now. Our long-term goal is to build a clean economy in Haiti, and it's now 7. If you guys want, I could do a little sample of my TED Talk about fourth world nation building, or we could transition and leave more time for Q&A. Up to you.
Whatever everyone wants. TED Talk. Q&A.
Cool, so this is the change theory on which 10 Power is based. Hashtag fourth world. So people across the planet have aspirations, right? I think anyone's with kids school is to have their kids lead a better life than they had. And when you think about all the people on planet Earth, right, the global footprint, if all 7.8 billion humans on the planet had an American's footprint, it would require over 5 planet Earths. But too bad for us, there's only one planet Earth, and there's no planet B. Right now, energy usage in non-OECD nations is projected to increase by 150% by 2030. So while places like California are increasing our population, but keeping our energy consumption stable through energy efficiency, there is, with fossil fuel-based projections, the potential for this growth in energy access to really push us way over the limit. I mean, we're already there at the limit in terms of climate change. So if this energy growth comes from fossil fuel-based sources, then it's really game over for humanity. But the good news is if this comes from renewable energy resources, we have the potential not just to create a regenerative relationship between humans and the environment, but we also have the opportunity to empower billions of people. So I propose that development is going backwards right now. We have this false duality between first world and third world nations, developing and developed nations. So what I think that we should be doing with development is flip the script, and instead of going, everybody trying to be a first world nation, we should be going the other direction. Everybody should be trying to be a fourth world nation, just like tech. 1.0, 2.0, 5.0, 7.0. So the ideas behind fourth world are elaborated in the World Economic Forum's Fourth Industrial Revolution publication. So the World Economic Forum calls out data informatics as part of this fourth industrial revolution. Understanding of our natural systems, complete inputs and outputs, and now with blockchain technology, we're seeing completely distributed systems that we don't need centralized banking to control. Complete access to renewable energy for 100% of humanity. Net zero buildings that create oxygen and grow food. And traditional ecological knowledge, where we are remembering how humans lived for tens of thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution, when we started harvesting carbon dioxide emissions out of the ground and spewing them into the atmosphere. All we have to do is remember, ask our great-great-great-grandmothers how to harvest carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and put it back down into the ground where it belongs. Who knows what an imaginal cell is?
Wow.
So, an imaginal cell. I'm going to tell you. We are all imaginal cells. So when a caterpillar goes into a chrysalis to become a butterfly, it doesn't just turn one leg into a leg and its back suddenly sprouts wings. It actually first completely decomposes into a primordial ooze. And all of the cells become kind of these stem cells in the sludge. And there's a few of those cells, called imaginal cells, that contain the blueprint for the butterfly. So those imaginal cells first get attacked by the other cells. So they have to gently ward off their peers, say, wait, we come in peace. Then they have to find each other, and they have to start creating the butterfly and teach all of the other cells how to create the butterfly, which is basically a metaphor for where humanity is at right now. We are no longer a little grub worm with linear waste cycles that can just eat and shit without any thought to what the consequences are for the future. We need to transform into a pollinator that is a net beneficial species for all other species on planet Earth. So with that, I am going to invite you to an action that we're doing tomorrow. I've been, in my non-existent free time, I've been organizing with Extinction Rebellion, and we are collaborating with Center for Biological Diversity to do an action tomorrow, which is a playful animals parade. We're gonna dress up like animals with facts about species loss on our bodies. We'll have giant puppets, a marching band. We'll start off at Union Square. Take out your phones, take a picture of this. Normally you don't want people to have their phones out right at these things, but please join us. So we're gonna meet at Union Square, and then we're gonna march to Nancy Pelosi's office, and we're gonna deliver a petition that has over 500,000 signatures right now. So take an extended lunch break, bring your animal onesie to work. We are making the evolution fun. And this is gonna be a blast tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
When you said that the water purification thing was supporting a large number of businesses, in what way is it supporting? Is it just giving them water, or is it somehow involved in the work? I didn't quite catch that.
So the water purification facilities both directly sell water to people who just walk up to the business, but they also resell water to small micro enterprises. And basically everyone in Haiti is an entrepreneur, because you don't graduate from school and get a job. You create a job yourself. And so there are a lot of these small stands where women will sell water and beer and some gum and some juice and some lotto tickets. And so it's usually these smaller enterprises where a woman will come and she'll get a whole bunch of water in a reusable container, and then be able to sell it out farther in communities that don't have walking access to these central nodes. They recently launched so they're a hybrid business. They have a for-profit and they recently launched a nonprofit which is providing water for free to schools. 1 in 5.
So for the solar financing portion, do you guys have some sort of credit analysis to make sure the end user has the ability to pay back within a set time?
We do, and it's challenging because there's not a corporate credit score, especially in Haiti. So we do a very thorough analysis that is both hard metrics as well as soft metrics. So we look at previous financial performance of the business, we look at the market context and who their competitors are. A lot of the companies that are in our sales pipeline are really the core pillars of the Haitian economy. So unlike in the States where a lot of services that we're used to, trash collection, sewage and sanitation, water purification, all of these are public services. In Haiti, everything is privatized. So these are family-owned businesses that have been together 50, 70, 100 plus years through generations. And so they're going, whether there's an earthquake, a coup, a hurricane, like these businesses have been around, so they've really withstood the test of time. So we're really focused right now on those top tier commercial and industrial customers. And hopefully as we're building the market out and achieving economies of scale, we'll be able to move into more mid-size, small scale, and one day residential customers.
Can you repeat the questions too when they go back and forth?
Sure.
Yeah.
Are there any particular product partners that you're working with or looking to work with for solar and batteries? And I guess longevity obviously is important for these folks, so where is sort of the fit there?
Are there product partners and what's the fit with longevity? Yeah, having vetted suppliers with warranties is really important to us, and while we're constantly keeping a pulse on the latest and greatest emerging technology, for our business purposes, we need to work with really well vetted suppliers. We, on the UNICEF project, put in lithium ferrophosphate batteries, which avoid a lot of the problems with lithium-ion batteries. They're more fire resistant, they don't have cobalt in them, which is basically the blood diamonds of batteries. And so we're excited to work potentially with other LFP companies. The PV, the panels, we have a number of different suppliers. We work with a couple of different inverter companies. We used SMA on the UNICEF project. And we'll work with the customer on price. So depending on the price sensitivity of the customer, we have kind of a menu of different technology providers.
Yeah. What was it like? How did you get into Haiti in the beginning? Did you know somebody there, or did you just show up and said, "Hey, can I put solar on your roof?" Like,
I don't advise just showing up in Haiti. But if you want to come, I'll show you around. Previously I was working in big data for the smart grid, and when I quit my Silicon Valley job, the first thing I started doing was collecting data, because I knew I wanted to start a renewable energy access company. So I created a 3-axis graph, and on one axis was the price of electricity for all the countries in the world. On the other axis was the percentage of the population with electricity. And then just as a corollary, on the third axis, I was looking at cell phone connectivity to see if people were really receptive and adopting, people always talk about cell phones as the leapfrog proxy for solar, leapfrogging over power lines. So there were a couple of outliers. Most countries were kind of in this least squares regression line, where you had up in the high cost, high access European countries with feed-in tariffs, on the low cost, low access countries like India and China, and then countries were kind of along this trajectory. But there were a handful of countries that were just the complete outliers in terms of the world's highest electricity costs and lowest access to power. And these were mostly island nations that were importing 100% of their electricity as fossil fuels, diesel. And so I went to the Philippines. I started doing some research in sub-Saharan Africa, but went to Haiti first because I had some friends there. And it's actually a good buddy of mine who started an organization called Communautaire. They were some of the first on the ground after the 2010 earthquake with infrastructure. And they've created this beautiful node where they couple international NGOs with locals to make sure that their projects are actually desired and functional. Haiti is the republic of NGOs. There are more NGOs per capita than any other country on the planet there, and this comes with a lot of resentment. I've been told, pitching solar, like, you Americans come here and you leave your trash in our yard, because there are so many projects where with the best of intention, people have come in and deployed technology without asking the community if they want the technology, and then there's no ongoing operations and maintenance or support, and so then a year later it's broken, and people are like, we don't want this, why is it here? So to me it was hypercritical that we were working with local partners, so it was great to land in this space that had really strong local partnerships. And then I started doing market research, just interviewing business owners, interviewing existing solar installers, trying to figure out what the missing pieces in the market were, because I didn't want to replicate anything that was already happening. You know, we're here to uplift what's already happening on a local level and bring in whatever pieces are necessary to help further solar markets.
If you had to choose a second item or a second place, what are you thinking?
Yeah, second markets, I'm definitely looking right now at what our second market will be. I've visited Puerto Rico multiple times since Maria. I was actually presenting on an island innovation webinar earlier this morning, and there was a lot of talk about microgrids in Puerto Rico. So that's probably first on my radar right now. I am interested in sub-Saharan Africa, but I haven't visited there yet. But it's definitely a really happening market in terms of energy access. And I really hope to work on tribal lands in the US. There are still communities here that don't have access to electricity. And it's really appalling how the people who are suffering the most from climate change are the people who have the least to do with creating the conditions of climate change.
Have you talked to the Haitian government about having them help out to fund some of this stuff?
Yeah, our conversations with the Haitian government have gone a variety of different ways. So initially, when the current president, Jovenel Moïse, came into power, I was lucky enough to meet with him when he was still a candidate. And he was all about agriculture, and I was like, Jovenel, it's really crucial that farmers have access to electricity to improve agriculture. And so he actually made that part of his platform, creating 24-hour electricity in 24 months, which is a gigantically ambitious challenge. Unfortunately, he's not put the policy mechanisms in place to do that. And so right now, a lot of these Petrocaribe protests that are happening are around government corruption, and people who are out on the streets are actually calling for his resignation right now. So there was a lot of money that was supposed to go into infrastructure development, which is not necessarily under the Moïse administration. It's been the past 2 administrations in Haiti, but a lot of money got siphoned off and never went into infrastructure. So it's challenging to work with the Haitian government from many different angles. We intentionally designed a business model that goes straight to the private sector so that we don't have to work with the government. But right now there's an interesting initiative between the World Bank and the Haitian government where the World Bank is offering a small subsidy for renewable energy microgrids in rural communities. And so we are an approved vendor in their bidding process. They're about to launch another bid. And so it could be interesting. Right now, it's difficult to make renewable energy microgrids work on a long-term cash flow basis, especially in Haiti. So there's a little bit of subsidy, but if you look at how in places like the States, we got the utility infrastructure that we have, it was oftentimes from government bonds with 1% interest over a 50-year payback period. And in markets where, in Haiti, there is no bond market. Right? The government is already broke. They're bleeding $200 million a year on fossil fuel subsidies. And so there's not the internal financing mechanisms that exist within the country or the capital availability. And so I see it as the role of international development banks and reversing colonialism and philanthropic donors, because as we've seen over the last couple of decades, wealth is concentrated into the hands of a few on a really drastic scale globally. And so I think that it's a moral imperative for people to be taking some of that excess capital, for billionaires to get their tax write-offs by putting some of this capital into making it financially feasible for people who are really at the end of the line to get electricity in these markets.
What made you decide to go with the B Corp, and how has that affected some of your decision making?
So we're actually incorporated as a California LLC, but we are certified B Corporation, which was a great process. One of our investors, Lift Economy Force for Good, helped us with the B Corp certification process. And it's been really lovely getting a lot of resources from B Corporation, a lot of formal procedures that I had in here, but I hadn't really documented on paper. So they have a font of resources for manuals and policies and things like that. We actually, this year, were Best of the World Environment on the B Corp list. So I just celebrated that recently. But yeah, it's an amazing community to be part of. In terms of incorporation status, I actually, my first company that I started in 2008, we incorporated as a C Corp, and this time around I was a little bit smarter, so I went with an LLC with an X Corp election for tax purposes, which has proven to be a lot more beneficial, you know, since VCs aren't going to invest in us anyways, so that would basically be the point of being a C Corp. Yeah. So we, yeah, I had made a pact with myself that when we were cash flow positive, I would get B Corp certified. So we did that last year.
Congrats.
Speaking of governmental corruption, or just corruption in general, have you run into that in sort of setting this up and sort of I know you had it in with your group at all, like just, yeah, for permitting of sites, is like, have any inspectors saying, hey, this will go faster if you, give me something extra?
We've fortunately have not had to deal with corruption. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that we are so focused on having local partners and local providers, and my entire team is Haitian. So they know the Haiti market, and they know which people that we want to deal with who are clean. They know how to deal with the person who's going to put the extra markup on there if they think that we're a foreign company with buckets of money. So having that local expertise within the market is super important for any entity that's operating internationally. So I'm really grateful to have my team with eyes and ears on the ground at all times, and that contextual knowledge. And also when it comes to credit vetting, people know each other, people know people. So so if there's a customer who's known for not paying their bills, the punishment for bad debt in Haiti is that your name gets published in the newspaper. So Haitians who read the news, know if they saw somebody's name in there 10 years ago, they're going to remember that.
Are you monitoring your systems locally, or do you have a network operations center here?
So we are working with a couple of third-party providers on monitoring solutions. There's not always continual connectivity. So we do have a cloud-based solution, but sometimes there's on-site data collection that gets uploaded when there is connectivity.
Are most of your financiers and lenders in Haiti, or are you bringing U.S. capital in to help finance these projects?
Yeah, all of our funders on financing, all of our funders are based here, many here in California. We raised our first round from impact investors, just individual investors who have a bunch of money who want to combat climate change and provide energy access. Our next tranche came from debt investors. We raised from SheEO, which is an amazing network of women investing in women. They're actually accepting applications right now if there are any women-led companies out there looking for capital. And Lift Economy, Force for Good, which invests primarily in people of color and women-led startups. And we are now trying to crack the nut on international development capital, which I think will be the holy grail for us. So we have a couple of interested international development banks that we're talking to. It's a very long process. And I'm currently launching a donor-advised fund for a blended capital stack. So in addition to taking on debt and equity, we'll have a cushion of soft capital, which will come from philanthropic sources. And we're working with Impact Assets. They have a structure that enables philanthropic donors to put money in, get a tax write-off, and then we are creating a renewable energy access fund that can continually lend to underwrite renewable energy financing projects. So from the donor's perspective, it's a win, because instead of the money going towards a one-time project, if everything goes according to plan, it can be used 10, 20, 50 times. So you're having outsized social impact. And from our perspective, it helps us to get those more conservative debt and equity providers in, because the risk is underwritten. So I don't have to go out and say like, Hades, this crazy risky market, like give us a like U.S. stock market return, capital stock. So we can actually adjust for the risk using philanthropic capital. So my plan is to open source this term sheet so that other social impact organizations can use it, because where I see the kind of valley of death right now for impact organizations is in raising Series A style capital. Because you can't just, there's no Silicon Valley, sandhill road for social impact organizations. So we really need to create more pathways. And I want to do what Y Combinator did with the SAFE agreement for convertible notes for Series A rounds with this donor advised fund open source term sheet, so that at least we can create that underwriting stack of concessionary capital.
So 2 follow-up questions. One is a comment, but there's 2 people, you may have already spoken with them, I'll talk to you after, that I think might be interesting funds. The second question is, are the returns actually better for a private investor to get involved, to invest in Haiti for solar development projects? Are the tax returns, is it a better shelter than finding a commercial project here that might be just smaller to finance on what I'm assuming is a PPA at the end of the day? Are you seeing better returns by bringing capital from the US over there for your investors? And number 2, why are you only focused on the Haitian market? Are there not other markets, or even the US-based ones, that you can bring in this kind of social impact purpose, which is far better than the other hundreds of installers that exist in the US at this point? Could you be bringing that kind of value back here into the US, which I personally feel has been sort of lost in the solar install business? So those are the 2 questions I have as a follow-up.
Yeah, so from an investor's perspective, on comparing the return on investment in Haiti versus a US-based PPA, I'm not going to lie, there is a lot of risk in Haiti. Sure. So we're not providing the 40%, what people would expect to see as a risk-return ratio. I can't push that interest rate on my customers. So our returns are tantamount with an investment that someone would make here, but we're really focused on impact investors because we're providing that social and environmental return in these markets. Haiti was my first market, and we started there before Trump was in office. So things were a lot less fucked than they are right now in the US. So I'm definitely feeling the pull to do more projects here, as we're seeing, the ITC threatened. There is a lot more mature solar market here in the United States, and so I really see, from my personal mission perspective, fringe communities and communities that don't have access to electricity today as still our target focus for 10 Power, because we're trying to bring things to the table that nobody else has done before. So as with Haiti in any market, local partners figuring out who's already doing amazing work, and then just working to support them and bringing resources to the table is the name of the game for us.
One quick question, I'm sorry for anyone else who's got a question. Is there no way that you can structure it such that the U.S. entity is the owner and investing into a U.S.-based project and still take advantage of ITCs while you're still shipping it off to Haiti in this case?
That's interesting.
The IRS hasn't done an audit in years. I write off my rent as, a tax deduction.
Yeah, don't say that at PG&E, state-owned enterprise.
So, have you guys looked into that?
So the economics in Haiti, it's interesting because there's no ITC required. So because electricity is so expensive, we actually, the finances work out, the economic model works out without any type of subsidies, which is what's interesting in a lot of these markets. We are right now doing a little bit of juggling with a holding company in the British Virgin Islands, but that's specifically because we have a Caribbean-based renewable energy investor that wants to put some capital into 10 Power that can't invest in a US-based company. So, and we don't want to put money directly into Haiti. So there are some potential avenues for creative juggling in that regard.
Because the way it's structured, if you bring in, because the investment has to be done from a US-based group for solar, if you own the system, you just shipped it off to Haiti. That's about it.
Interesting concept.
If anyone other than Swarnum has another question, we'll take it. Otherwise, we will move along with the program. So thank you, Sandra, very much.
I'm sure you have.
And next up we have Victoria Arch, the co-founder and COO of Angaza. And she will give you her backstory and that of Angaza. Welcome.
Great, thank you, Robbie. So it's great to be back here after, I guess it has been a couple years, which is crazy. It's great to see Sandra again and catch up on everything that's been happening with 10 Power. Our paths have crossed several times over the past couple of years also. I think it's probably easiest, just to start with a video. It gives an overview of our company, and then I can talk through a little more detail about what we do.
This is the 21st century. Breakthrough solar and battery technologies are enabling efficient, distributed access to energy. Manufacturers are building these technologies into products for the off-grid consumer market. And distributors are bridging global and local supply chains to deliver them. So, why do 1 billion people still burn kerosene for light at night? Turns out there's a barrier to these solar options. The barrier of upfront cost. That billion, they've got money to burn. They spend far more on a year's worth of kerosene than the total cost of a solar light. What they don't have is enough cash at one time to buy solar products outright. But if there's a way to spread out the cost over time, then the purchasing power of 1 billion people gets unleashed. And that's where Angaza comes in. We work with manufacturers and distributors to make pay-as-you-go pricing possible for a range of products sold to consumers beyond the grid. First, we help manufacturers make their products pay-as-you-go ready with our embedded data transfer technology. When a customer prepays for energy, the product is activated. If payment runs out, the product automatically deactivates to ensure that the customer pays again. Now these products can be sold incrementally to a much larger customer base. Next, we provide distributors with the software to scale fast-growing pay-as-you-go operations. Our software platform enables distributors to track payments in real time, customize sales support, and visualize diagnostic data collected from every product sold. Distributed teams can now make data-driven decisions anytime, anywhere. It's the 21st century. Grid extension is decades behind, and the off-grid market is growing rapidly. With Angaza's platform, manufacturers and distributors are scaling with confidence and reaching the billion beyond the grid.
All right, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we do. I'll talk about it
This is the
a bit more
21st
detail. To be clear, our primary business model is built around a software-as-a-service platform that we sell to distributors of life-changing products. The vast majority of those products are solar electrification kits of various sizes and various configurations. And our software platform is designed to help those distributors sell those products on credit to end users in emerging markets. So it allows the end users to pay for those products in small, affordable micropayments over time. And the platform is really designed to give the distributors all of the different tools they need to do those sales efficiently at scale in these really complicated market contexts where you have end consumers that have no digital identity, certainly no credit score. You're working with a bunch of different types of currencies, you're working with mobile money or digital payment transfer technologies. Many of our distributors are digitizing their business for the first time. And so we are providing them with a holistic set of tools that helps them do that successfully. Another part of our business that the video touched on is actually not really part of our core business model, but is very sort of foundational to our pay-as-you-go platform as a whole, which is the services that we provide to the manufacturers of the solar products. We have an IoT team that works with those manufacturers to embed a basically metering and monitoring technology into all of their SKUs, so that when an end user in the emerging market makes a payment, we communicate with that product, tell the product it can switch on, the product then is usable for the duration of time that's been paid for, essentially, and then it automatically deactivates until the end user makes another payment. The aspect of our business is to make sure that the distributors have some way to essentially remotely enforce the loans that they've made, because they are operating in these really complex market contexts. Their end users are spread all over the place, so the collection costs on these loans can be prohibitive unless they have some additional sort of ways to enforce the loan they've given and encourage repayment from the end user. I will say also, we call this pay-as-you-go because it's slightly different from traditional microfinance in that the distributors allow a lot of flexibility in repayment. So there's usually no interest rate on the repayments from the end users. There's no penalty in the majority of cases if an end user misses a payment. So it's really allowing the end users to pay in affordable payments over time that meet their cash flow. And each payment, in most cases, goes towards a final payoff price of the product. So once the end user has paid back the full value of the product or the full value of the loan, that product is unlocked, and then the end user can use it throughout the rest of the life of the product. So I could talk a little bit about the history of the company since I was here a couple years ago. We're actually a 7-year-old company. We have gone through a few pivots, as all startups probably do if any of you are startup people. But we, pretty early on, when we're entering the pay-as-you-go solar market, the market itself was super nascent. It was dominated by companies that were very vertically integrated, which is probably common for all new markets, I'm learning. You just don't have enough partnership opportunity and infrastructure to allow specialization across the value chain. So the major players in pay-as-you-go solar were manufacturing products, they were creating the software to manage their pay-as-you-go loans, and they're performing the sales, after-sales support and servicing, so the full B2C value chain. So Angaza made a bet early on that we did not, well, first of all, we couldn't afford to do that. And we also realized that being here in Silicon Valley, we have an office in Nairobi as well, but our core founders, all 3 of us are here. We really wanted to focus on the technical aspects of this value chain and specialize on the software and on the IoT services and become a business-to-business company that allowed the distribution, after-sales support and servicing, and upstream from us, the manufacturing to be done by companies that were specialized in those aspects of the value chain. And that ended up being an extremely important and good decision that we made, because what the B2C companies had done was sort of unlock interest in pay-as-you-go solar. And so distributors and manufacturers really wanted to be able to basically tap into this pay-as-you-go financing capability, but they didn't want to have to build the whole value chain themselves. And so we have really quickly reached pretty significant scale over the last several years because we took this partnership approach to the market and because the market is just maturing kind of around us as we speak. So we now have about almost 200 distributors operating in over 50 markets around the world. The vast majority of our distributors are in sub-Saharan Africa. There's a big concentration, Sandra probably knows this, many of you might know this, that East Africa was sort of the sweet spot at the beginning of this revolution, and it's now spreading really rapidly across the entire continent. And so we have partners now across pretty much the entire sub-Saharan Africa, that part of the continent. We also have some partners in Asia and in Latin America as well. We are working with over 20 different manufacturers, and we have had over 1 million, I think it's 1.3 now million loans managed through our platform. So it's been a great couple of years. From a funding perspective, we are a social enterprise, but we have raised venture rounds. They have not been traditional sandhill VCs, but happy to talk to anybody who's trying to go down that path. It's difficult and complicated, but it can be done. So yeah, that's the main summary. Are there questions that anybody has for me? Yeah.
Yeah, so in the initial sort of chip design that you're like, we want to control these devices, did you go and just buy a bunch of the small wattage solar panels, like these are the devices that are sold in these markets and we want to control them? Or did you build your own and then try to sell to the manufacturers? How did that occur?
Yeah, so this was one of our early pivots. We initially were manufacturing our own product. Our CEO, my co-founder, is a product designer out of Stanford, and she was really interested in building a high-powered, high-wattage solar light to be sold into these markets. And then when we started thinking about the financing aspect and started, I guess, doing the first steps into pay-as-you-go, we initially were putting the technology into our own hardware. That changed when we formed our first really key manufacturing partnership. With that partner, we started doing essentially a firmware integration. So we merged, we used a single microcontroller, and we basically merged our firmware with their firmware to allow the pay-as-you-go aspect of the metering and monitoring. Since then, our sort of IoT stack has matured, so we have several different ways to do that integration, but yeah, it's sort of transitioned from our own product to this firmware approach. Yeah.
Did you use something like a portable kit or something for distribution, or how was that done? Because I know there are portable kits now that you can take. So I'm from Kenya, by the way, too.
Oh, yeah.
I built some microgrids for 2 villages in Laikipia.
Oh, great.
And obviously we use M-Pesa for mobile transfer, right? And it's an excellent tool, and that's why Mark Zuckerberg also came to Kenya for that one reason.
Right.
But yeah, just kind of wondering how you did that. Like, was it portable kits?
Yeah, so pretty much all the solar products that are sold through our platform that our distributors are selling are kits. So it's a lithium-ion battery of some sort, and then it has various ports, so it charges phones always. It has lights, and then depending on the size of the battery pack and the panel, it might power small electronics. I'm sure you've seen TVs all over the place now, fans, even getting large enough size products in some cases to power refrigerators. There's also been some really cool innovation on the appliance side, where you're getting really lightweight, kind of skinny appliances that can be powered off of really relatively small battery and panel combinations. So it's been a really good driver of innovation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
You'd mentioned that you guys had started in various regions within Africa and have since expanded to Latin America and Asia. And I'm curious how that experience has been, how it's been to scale your technology, and what some of the lessons learned have been in that expansion process.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the cloud makes things so much easier. It helps us localize to the different countries that we go into, but there have been a few really interesting things that we've learned. One of them is that, so we communicate a lot via SMS, and so that means when an end user makes a payment, our platform registers it, we send a code to the end user, or we just send an acknowledgement text. We do a lot of communication that way. And the SMS infrastructure is just incredibly complicated and crazy. And so we've had to do a lot of work to optimize that, because it's so essential to our platform actually working. And that's been a huge challenge across all the African continent. In terms of expanding from Africa to Asia and Latin America, mobile money is one thing that has been a really interesting, lack of mobile money has been an interesting hurdle. So this is also true for many countries in Africa, but we've had to build a lot of cash management tools into the platform, because you can imagine from a distributor's point of view, this is a cash management nightmare. They have micropayments coming into agents who are trying to get that back to HQ, and there's just a lot of possibility for loss and fraud. And the presence of, do people know what mobile money is? I want to make sure. It's basically like Venmo when you don't have a bank account. So you go to an agent and you hand them, let's say, shillings, and the agent can essentially put those shillings onto your SIM card. It's kind of like a magical thing. And then you can text that money to your friend or to a vendor, and that is a way to digitize cash. And so we have done a lot of work to make sure that we can enable our distributors to accept payments that way. There's really very little mobile money infrastructure outside of Africa. I mean, again, even within Africa, it's super variable. The one thing in Latin America that was super interesting for us is that the pockets of off-grid, there's much smaller populations that are fully off-grid, and the pockets tend to be also offline, because it's a huge generalization, but often it's a mountainous region, And so you're kind of dipping into a valley, and so you don't have cell service and you don't have power lines. And so we've had to build a lot of offline infrastructure into our mobile application to allow the whole process to work in order to really start to get much traction in Latin America. It's still been pretty slow. India is also this completely complicated nut to crack. The regulatory environment is complicated, as everybody knows, and we just haven't had strong distribution partnerships crop up there, so it's still relative to the potential in the off-grid market there, or the sort of semi-grid, like the on-grid but unreliable grid. We have had very few distributors come to us or come into our platform.
Aside from pay-as-you-go solar, what is a really promising market or two that you're looking at?
In the sort of pay-as-you-go space, basically, or like
Right,
distribution?
aside from pay-as-you-go solar.
Yeah.
Anything else at all? 'Cause
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a huge focus of the company right now. There are, I'd say we're really interested in some of the agricultural tools, so solar water pumps, for example. There's even grain mills that are fairly popular. We have a biodigester that we're now compatible with, also sort of in the energy generation space. Also really getting a lot of interest in cellular phones. So the question is whether we can put enforcement technology that's Angaza enforcement technology so that they actually switch on or switch off. That's really complicated when you're trying to get the firmware of a phone. Or whether it should just be something that our distributors sort of sell on credit and still manage through our platform. But that we see as being potentially a really big growth area if we can kind of crack that nut. But I'd say, yeah, sort of the solar adjacent categories, mostly around like agriculture, are really our areas of interest. Yeah.
What's the average size of the kits that you're selling? Do you have an average or?
Yeah, the most popular ones right now are around 60 to 120 watts. That has gone, it's like incrementally, cost curves are coming down, plus affordability. So yeah, affordability is increasing, and people just want bigger kits, and it's totally reasonable.
How about watt hours? How big are batteries?
Gosh, I actually don't know what our typical one is now. Yeah.
Do appliances come in those kits? Like,
sometimes they're bundled in the kits. Yeah, do appliances come? TVs are super popular now, and there's a lot more bundling of those. That's another really interesting, I guess that also fits into a different category, because sometimes people want to be able to just sell a TV that's technically enforced, as opposed to selling a TV as part of a kit. And so we're looking into how we can potentially help enforce pay-as-you-go on just independent appliances, or have those appliances talk wirelessly to a battery pack and have the enforcement on the battery pack. So there's a lot of sort of discussion and innovation around that. Beyond TVs, radios are super popular. Those are probably the most popular, and then just various types of light configurations. And then we are really, really interested in trying to get a refrigerator, just because we think it would be really cool and helpful for like productive use type stuff.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
What's the DC appliance infrastructure like in your markets?
It's improving. You mean like how much supply is there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're mostly seeing DC appliances coming from, at least the ones that we're aware of, coming from our existing manufacturers. So they are seeing the market demand and they're adding compatible appliances to their kits. And that's what the manufacturers prefer, to have the ones that need to have a handshake basically with their own batteries to try to keep everything, in-house. But in general, just the boom and sort of these super efficient DC appliances has been really cool. It's been a major driver for innovation, I think, in this space.
I have a question about the phone. So I was at an artisanal mining challenge launch. So artisanal mining, I didn't know what it was either. So apparently 50 to 100 million people in the world are like mom and pop miners. But they're not trained, which means they hurt their own health, they hurt the environment, so they just do the best they can. So one of the needs that's emerging there is the same kind of a phone app over SMS that could potentially help them certify what they did or teach them how to do it better. So in fact, if you have a functional SMS solution and more for the phone, that might be sellable into a whole other market.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We are thinking a lot. I think one of the aspects of distribution in these markets that's pretty unique and fairly consistent, because there's a lot of things that are not consistent from distributor to distributor, but they pretty much always tend to have a distributed work base, and those people are out in the field, they're mobile, and they're going in and out of network, and they pretty much always have a phone. And so that piece of communicating with them and pushing content to them is something that we think about a lot as a service basically to our distributors, but yeah, maybe extensible in some cases.
Bad actors. Are there people who are hacking your equipment and still allowed to use it?
Yeah, this is something that keeps us up at night for sure. We have not had a major hacking event. Our IoT team spends a lot of time trying to figure out how to tamper-proof our parts of the products, and we do a certification before we agree to work with a manufacturer to make sure that it's like, it can't just be pried open super easily. So it's really a tight collaboration between ourselves and the manufacturers, and honestly there's commercial terms set up with the manufacturers to say like, look, if a hacking event happens and it's your problem, you need to fix it. If it's our problem, we will do a recall and fix it. But and then we put a lot of time and effort around making sure that we're as hack-proof as possible. But yeah, it's certainly a huge risk. People have time, they're super innovative, and they're motivated, and so it would be, yeah, there's lots of different attack vectors. Yeah.
For your, so essentially what you're implementing is like a DRM system for the greater good, but still it's a DRM system.
I actually don't know what a DRM system is.
Oh, it's digital rights management.
Okay.
It's like how you can't copy CDs and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we've seen particular manufacturers where they, whenever they have DRM systems, but in emergencies, they will somehow like deactivate that so that it's available for use in emergencies. So do you have a system like that? So where there's natural disasters, whatever, and then you close a bit, and the thing starts working 24/7, and then you can close it back.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Super interesting. So basically, can we flip things on if there's an extenuating circumstance? That means that people really need their light and really need power. It depends on the type of product. So some products, the majority of our products that we work with right now, we actually use a key code technology, meaning that we have an encryption protocol that's on, in the firmware, and in order to unlock the product after making a payment, the end user gets a key code, usually via SMS, and types it into some sort of keypad that's connected to the device. So in that case, we would have to push out emergency key codes to all of those users and have them type it in, so it's not like a perfect solution. There's a growing body of products that we work with that are connected via the GSM network, so we have a little GSM radio in the product itself, and those for sure, yeah, we could just switch them on. So it would kind of depend. Yeah.
At the average product sizes you're looking at, do you foresee like there being a tipping point where if you have enough customers clustered in an area and then you have opportunities for something that looks more like C&I, like a community center or something, actually starting to focus those into microgrids, or is it kind of just a electrification by organic market growth pretty much in perpetuity?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have thought a lot about microgrids over the years because we've been approached by microgrid developers, and for now, there's so many parts of our platform that are built around sort of standalone loans, and there's also so many complexities around microgrids that we're not willing to deal with around like load balancing and payment from different homes and managing like theft of energy, and also the being able to duplicate or replicate a microgrid structure, like the topology, is just like mind-boggling to me. And so we've basically carved that out. We had a lot of discussions around this internally because we do think they have a huge amount of impact potential and market potential, but we have carved it out as a place that we're not going to go right now. I do think there could be a really interesting partnership with a company like 10 Power, where if we do see a real concentration of household lanterns, we could say, hey, look, this seems like a great spot to think about a central installation. Because I know that the density is a huge issue for the economics of microgrids. So. Yeah.
In going into these markets, similar to my question to Sandra, do you run into corruption and things like that? And is it your local partners who handle that, or how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, we're somewhat protected because we work through, the distributors are the ones that are locally registered entities and are kind of navigating the business sort of milieu in a particular country. We have run into, we have been exposed to, through our distributors, fraud at the agent level pretty consistently. So, like I mentioned with cash management, there are some fairly ingenious schemes around by the agents working for some distributors that have caused like pretty significant monetary losses for our distributors. Sometimes we actually notice something aberrant in their data, and we're like, ooh, we flag that to them through our success team and just try to make sure that everything is going okay. But yeah, we haven't really ever run into kind of corruption or bribery at the more like government level to date. Yeah.
And also sort of my same question that I asked, how did you choose your first country, like which one was it, and then how did you get into that market itself?
So we piloted in Tanzania. That was literally myself and my co-founder like running around selling these lights. It was crazy. And then when we were going to market and trying to decide kind of where our base was going to be, we had a really strong potential distribution partnership in Kenya, so that took us to Kenya. Also, it was sort of felt like at that time, again, this was like 7 or 8 years ago, like all roads were leading us to Kenya. It just has really excellent infrastructure. It has a really forward-looking technology sector. It has some really amazing talent and a fairly stable government, and so it really, from a startup perspective, made a lot of sense as a place to put down our roots, and we've been there since that point. So we started out with, I think, the majority of our sales in Kenya for probably only a few months before we fairly quickly started expanding to nearby countries.
Yeah. Question to both of you. In the future, do you see that you could, both of you, partner up and share each other's the technology that is very specific to your companies and help expand each other's business?
Yeah, I think we'd have to be willing to sort of touch microgrids, or I don't know, Sandra might have to be willing to touch lanterns and kits. There's like really big downsides to both. Yeah, it's interesting. We haven't really ever been pulled to Haiti as a market, I think, because it's well covered by companies like 10 Power. It's odd. You'd think there would be more intersection or overlay between the like single kit world and the microgrid or C&I space, but we haven't really come across it that much.
Yeah, it's funny because we've known each other for a really long time. Yeah, I met up with Victoria as I was first launching 10 Power to learn from everything that Angaza has done. And I hope that there is an opportunity in the future with this microgrids initiative that the Haitian government and the World Bank are working on. There is a carve out for PayGo systems and lanterns for those really hard to reach communities where it's not cost feasible to have a centralized system. So I think as with many sustainability based solutions, it's not a silver bullet, it's a silver buckshot, so combining a variety of different solutions. And 10 Power, even though our core focus right now is commercial and industrial solar in Haiti, our bigger mandate is the same as energy access and empowerment for all. So hopefully as we expand and we see more opportunities across our plate, then we will have the potential to partner up. Yeah.
Is there concern that as more of these solar kits go to market, demand for kerosene drops and the price might drop with that as well? So the return better before? Because some supply but lower than or is that the rock bottom price that we're paying?
You know, I feel like usually we're up against government subsidies with kerosene that pumps up pushes down the price of it. Also, we're pretty convinced by about the other benefits of solar. So if you can just, yeah, it's complicated. Like if the price of kerosene got so low, then it's tough to say. We have not seen any challenge to solar kits from kerosene. It's more a matter of sort of operational sophistication of the distributors, like how well can they run their business and, you know, make this whole thing work. But if the distributors are doing a good job, the end users, the benefits are just so multifold. Like Sandra did a wonderful job laying out. It's just solar or energy, clean energy touches so many parts of their lives that it sort of sells itself as long as it's not unaffordable, basically.
I can touch on that too. Kerosene also, like everybody who uses kerosene knows somebody whose house is burned down from kerosene, and sometimes the stories are really tragic. Like a mom leaves for a second and her baby is in the house, and then the kerosene lamp catches the house on fire. So, and also people know that their lung health degrades from kerosene. So I think especially because a lot of women are using these products in homes, there's common knowledge that kerosene really has detrimental effects for the family.
This question is also for both, but thoughts on end of life of product and recyclability, or what happens after?
Yeah, gosh, I came actually at this from an environmental perspective. I've gotten so much more passionate about the environment, the social aspects of what we do from meeting people that we touch, but the environmental piece of it is what really moves me from an energy access perspective. And the end of life stuff bothers me because there is not much, if any, e-waste infrastructure. There is a industry body called the Global Off-Grid Lighting Association, GOGLA, who has put together an e-waste kind of workforce and is thinking about ways to encourage safe and sustainable e-waste recycling in the different markets in which I guess all of us operate, but it's still super early. So Angaza has not done anything in that regard, unfortunately.
What's that called again?
GOGLA, it's the Global Off-Grid Lighting Association. Yeah, they're awesome.
Take-back programs are really important to us. With the panels, it's interesting. I have a contracting US-based engineer right now who's been in the solar market since it began in the 70s, and he has installations that he installed in the 70s where the panels are still working. So the longevity of PV is pretty amazing. Our inverters, as I mentioned, we worked with SMA for some of the inverters. The Germans have incredible recycling programs and product take-back programs. And the biggest concern is the toxicity of the batteries. In Haiti, a lot of people have lead-acid batteries. And so there's actually quite a mature lead-acid battery reclamation system in Haiti. Also, like nothing of value goes to waste in Haiti. And unfortunately, there hasn't been enough value created around plastic because you find a lot of plastic on the ground. But back to the batteries, if you have a lead-acid battery, even if it has a degraded depth of discharge, somebody will use it until it's completely dead, and then the lead will be emptied out and sent to a reclamation facility, and the battery will be hammered down or refilled. So it's pretty crazy how mature the pipeline is for lead-acid battery recycling. With our LFP battery partners, a take-back program is really crucial for us. And I imagine it's easier with large-scale commercial and industrial just because you're dealing with a lot of big suppliers, and so you can kind of work with their existing systems as opposed to having a really large network of smaller systems.
Yeah.
As you guys are selling a lot more TVs, have you found anybody that's got cool kind of applications for Raspberry Pi in sub-Saharan Africa, like loading up a bunch of Khan Academies to play on TV?
Well, we played with Raspberry Pi in our lab. I have not run into them like in the field, but our IoT team, I'm sure, has all sorts of ideas about that. But that is an interesting point. We're wondering whether something like content subscriptions might be something that we eventually transfer or think about integrating onto our platform. That would be a service or a subscription, which would be an extension of what we're doing now and require some feature adjustments. And so it's not happening right now, but it is an interesting question. Like, what what do people watch?
Here's a quick follow-up too. At the CNI size, it obviously makes a lot of sense that people can power legitimate, like, pretty large businesses with the installations. With the smaller installations from Angaza, have you run into different use cases for people starting localized businesses in a small village with just that amount of power?
Yeah, it's often it's just used, just the lighting is used to light like kiosks, and it's pretty stunning. If you go into a market after nightfall, your eye is just automatically drawn to it. So I think it's pretty effective just for that in and of itself. Interestingly, and again, this is kind of, I feel somewhat conflicted from an environmental perspective, but there has been a lot of use of super, super bright lights for fishing. They'll actually dip them into the water and the fish are attracted to it and they scoop them up. Often, like Lake Victoria is really popular. And again, the refrigerators, I think refrigerators and freezers, if we can get those onto the platform, will be really important for like fishermen again. I guess that's those are the main productive uses that we've seen so far. We are really interested in trying to get like grain mills onto the platform, so we think that can be really important, or that can be really helpful for small businesses.
To what degree is modern healthcare impacted positively by the solar? Like dispersed areas, so you can telemedicine.
Yeah, you might have some interesting perspective on that. So the question is what impact does the distributed solar have on healthcare? Yeah. We at least believe that the offset of kerosene is helpful from a just pure health perspective. From the actual provisioning of health services, I'm actually not sure. That's not something we've really encountered. I do think that some of these refrigerators and freezers could be used for vaccines or for keeping things like that, important medical supplies cool in the field. But there hasn't really been another health application that we've seen very much in my experience so far, unfortunately.
I have some battle stories. So we've actually been talking with a small hospital in Haiti for some time, and they just called us as the political instability is really heating up, and they said that due to fuel shortages in the country, they almost had to shut the hospital down. They have no electricity. They're doing surgery by candlelight right now, and this is a hospital that focuses primarily on surgical procedures for children. So the situation is pretty dire. A single watt can save a life in some cases. We're also talking with a pharmaceutical distributor, a Haitian-owned business. Because they don't have reliable electricity and medicines need to be kept within a very specific temperature range, they're only able to distribute medicines right now that don't require refrigeration. So having consistent and reliable electricity with which they can do cold chain storage will enable them to have a whole other set of medicines, which will also enable them to have another suite of products, which will help their business to grow.
There's also solar chilling. That's in your afternoon power for quite some time. I think it's still pretty expensive.
Yeah, cold chain storage is really interesting. I actually, I know.
Can you repeat that question?
There's solar chilling, which is pretty chill. So I want to introduce you, if you're interested in cold chain storage. I have a friend who's an African entrepreneur who's developed a small solar powered fridge for for fishing applications and things like that.
I wanted to ask about the Kazoo system. Is like, I'm not sure who actually had the ownership until they pay it on. So I was thinking about the repair aspect. So if something broke, just like be your or their responsibility. If you cannot help them, then you get in contact with it.
Yeah, that piece is pretty complicated. So the distributors purchase the products at wholesale prices from the manufacturers, and Angaza is not involved in that. And the manufacturers do provide a warranty. The warranties are getting better and better. Some of our manufacturers offer 3-year warranties on the products. If there is a problem in the field, then that typically stays between the end user, the distributor, and the manufacturer. However, the distributors are bearing the full financing risk, so that is problematic. They've purchased them at wholesale prices, they're selling them at like super below rock bottom prices and gathering that, collecting that money back over time. Most of the distributors are capital constrained. Working capital is hard no matter what, and it just exacerbates it. So we are trying to think about ways that we can play some kind of role in helping the distributors get working capital. But that's kind of a whole other area that the company's thinking about right now. But just very practically speaking, when an end user defaults and stops paying, we see a whole range of different behaviors from the distributor. We provide them with the tools to repossess products, and we help them see which ones are the most risk of never being paid for again, so they can kind of prioritize their collection activities. But ultimately, Angaza is just providing the distributor with the tools to run their business as they see fit, and we see a whole, a wide range of how they kind of deal with the problem of defaults or anything else that goes wrong in the field. Yeah.
Has your product been put to use in the United States, like with the homeless population or anything like that?
No, we have spoken with some people working in the Indian reservations on occasion, but it has never really gotten off the ground. Those are really the populations that are kind of strikingly off network, off grid and off network. It's just stunning. And so I do think that that is a place where potentially our technology could be useful. But I do think in those cases you'd probably want a microgrid. So it would be more, it's kind of a 10 powers alley, because you do have a concentration of people. They're all kind of probably have about the same buying power, and you have sort of the infrastructure around to support that microgrid installation. So it's never really gelled into a project with Angaza.
Any last questions? Great. Well, thank you so